Hello everyone and welcome to my 8th Pokemon Challenge run. Today we tackle a new Pokemon in a new game, Tepig in Pokemon White 2. A few weeks back, we played through Snivy in Pokemon White, and so I was unsure if the next Pokemon Challenge would be in Black or White 2. I ran a Discord poll and the results came back like this. And by the way, if you'd like to be a part of the vote to determine the next Pokemon Challenge, please feel free to join the Discord using the link below. Anyways, I'm really trying hard to create quality content for you guys on a weekly basis, so if you have any ideas or like seeing my content, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe so that you can keep up with all my future videos. With that shameless plug out of the way, let's get into the rules. Rule number 1, no glitches, hacks, or cheats. I do, however, use speed up, otherwise these videos would take far longer to produce and I'd rather produce them quickly. Rule number 2, I can only use one Pokemon in battle. However, because I am not cheating, I do need to use HM Pokemon for travel purposes only. And lastly, rule number 3, no items in battle. This doesn't include held items as I use Everstones during some runs, and so other held items are also allowed if necessary. With all of that out of the way, let's begin. I'll be real with you guys, this challenge is tough. You'll see why soon. We start our journey by resetting until we get a Jolly Nature Piggy. The reason why I chose Jolly for this run is because I had a feeling that our stats would be naturally pretty solid in terms of attack, but I noticed that Tepig really has an issue with speed, which is not very optimal for solo runs like this. With our newly acquired Piggy, Faith, on our roster, Hugh challenges us to a battle. Hugh is a pushover though, not at all a problem. We breeze by him with ease after using a Tail Whip and then spamming Tackle a few times. After our first battle with Hugh, we have a quick chat with friends and family before Bianca shows us how to battle and catch Pokemon. It's a good thing she did, since we'll be doing a lot of that here at the start. Fortunately for us, the only two Pokemon available to us on this route are Patrat and Purloin, giving one attack EV and one speed EV respectively. What this means is that we've got to fight 252 of each, or 604 Pokemon in total, before we can carry on with the challenge. After our EV training is finally over, it's time to head into the next area, but a wild man decides to yeet himself off a cliff in front of us for some reason. He shows us through the town and then tells us that Hugh is off ahead of us at the Flossessi Ranch, so we head over that way. Sure enough, Hugh is over there and he challenges us to another battle. He still only has the Oshawott though, meaning my Tepig is super stonked on EVs and EXP, so a single tackle is all it takes to beat poor Hugh. We head back to the weird cliff jumper guy, and I guess he just wanted to invite some random kid into his house or something. Since he seems like a nice enough guy, we follow him inside. Unfortunately, upon entering his house, we learn that he wants us to beat 2 other children in a Pokemon battle. If I had a nickel for every time this guy makes you fight 2 random kids in a Pokemon game, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't much, but it's still weird that it happened twice. After that debacle, we start heading back home to fight the first gym leader, but here comes Alder yeeting himself off a cliff for a second time even though we were just talking to him. Dude, I don't know what you have to tell me, but yeeting yourself off a cliff each time is psychotic. We get back to the first gym without interruptions and challenge Charon. Charon leads with Patrat, who we knock out with a single tackle. Charon's last Pokemon is Lillipup, which surprisingly tanks our tackle, but it faints to the next one, so not a huge deal. After beating Charon, we head to the next city and enter into yet another gym battle. Roxy leads with a Coughing, but at this time we had taught Return to Tepig, allowing us to do more damage. 2 returns easily takes down the floating tumor. Roxy then sends out her spare tire from the hit horror film Rubber, but fortunately for us, we have also learned Flame Charge and knock it out instantly. We then take a quick yet pretty boat ride over to Castelia, which to be honest I only included in the video because it was cool. Up next is Berg, the 3rd gym leader of the challenge. He leads with Swadloon, who we crit into the Twilight Zone with Flame Charge. Dwebble is the next Pokemon we decide to return on the first turn to ensure that the Sturdy ability isn't procced, then we Flame Charge on the second turn for the knockout, getting another crit. Berg's last Pokemon is Leavanny, who we casually turn into Ash with a single Flame Charge. With Berg beaten, we move onwards and run into Colress and a bunch of crabs. Colress makes the crabs disperse and then challenges us to a battle. Colress leads with Magnemite, who annoyingly has Sturdy, so we can't one-shot it with Flame Charge. Magnemite uses Spark and then Colress heals it, meaning that Sturdy procs once more. Finally, on the 3rd turn, we take it out with one more Flame Charge crit. Up next is Clink, who we Flame Charge immediately for the knockout, winning us our first battle against the Chad Colress. With Colress defeated, we head into Nimbasa and take on Elisa, our 4th gym. Elisa has a really frustrating team as Emolga almost always paralyzes us after a contact move with Static. We spent a bit of time grinding and learned Head Smash, as well as collecting the leftovers to offset some of the recoil damage. A single Head Smash is able to take out Emolga, and thankfully we're not paralyzed. Flaffy is up next, who sadly doesn't faint from the return, holding on to just a tiny bit of health and allowing it to Thunder Wave us. Elisa then heals and we return again, this time doing a little bit less damage. On the following turn though, Flaffy Volt switches into Zebstrika, who we hit with return for a crit one-shot. Talk about good luck. Flaffy is then sent back out, and after it tries to run away from us one more time, we take it out with another return for the win. After beating Elisa, we head over to Clay, who honestly wasn't as worrisome as I expected. Clay leads with a Krokorok, who lowers our attack on entry with Intimidate. At this time, we had learned Flare Blitz, so we're able to one-shot it though. Excadrill is up next, who we're also able to one-shot with Flare Blitz, and last up is Sandslash, who we crit Flare Blitz for the one-shot. Very easy fight. With Clay defeated, he takes us over to the Pokemon World Tournament where we have another battle against Hugh. Hugh leads with Dewat, who we're able to knock out with a Head Smash crit. Up next is Tranquil, who we're also able to one-shot with Head Smash, and last up is Simisage, who feints to a single Flare Blitz. Having defeated Hugh, our next opponent is Charon. Charon leads with a Stoutland, who avoids our first Head Smash and buffs itself up. Our second Head Smash connects, which sadly doesn't knock it out, but Stoutland buffs itself again, giving us another chance. On the following turn, we land a return and take it down. Cincino is up next, and a single Head Smash takes it out. Charon's last Pokemon is Watchog, who we're able to Flare Blitz for the one-shot. The last person we've got to fight in the PWT is Colress, who shouldn't be too difficult. Colress leads with Magneton, who we Flare Blitz and proc Sturdy while it Thunder Waves us. On the next turn, it uses Supersonic, which confuses us on top of our Paralyze, but we're able to pull through and land a return to take it out. Colress then sends out LGM, which heal blocks us to turn off our leftovers, and then we hit ourselves in confusion. LGM then growls to lower our attack, and then we hit ourselves again. On the following turn though, we finally break out of the confusion and land a return. Clink is the last Pokemon standing between us and victory, and we absolutely crush it with Flare Blitz. With the PWT behind us, we continue our League Challenge and take on Skyla. Skyla leads with Swoobat, who we sadly cannot one-shot with return. On the next turn, Skyla heals up and we hit another return doing the same damage. One turn later and we take out Swoobat. Swanna is up next, who isn't actually the main problem in this fight. A single Head Smash takes down Swanna. Skarmory is Skyla's last Pokemon, and the reason this fight took a bit longer. Skarmory has Sturdy, which a lot of Pokemon in this game seem to have. We hit Skarmory with return to break the Sturdy proc while it buffs, and then on the following turn tank a Steel Wing before landing a Flare Blitz to finally claim victory. Trekking onwards, we have another rival battle in store for us out in Delatown. This fight also took us quite a lot of time to get right. Hugh leads with Unpheasant, who we hit with return for a good chunk while it sets up Razor Wind. On the following turn, we take it down with a return. Up next is Samurott, who was a massive threat for a very long time. We hit Samurott with a return and it hits us back with Revenge. On the following turn, we land another return, while Samurott uses Retaliate. Hugh then heals up while we hit another 2 returns, taking it down without a single Aqua Jet. Hugh then sends out Simisage, who isn't a problem at all thanks to Flare Blitz. We move on to the next town and then run into Zinzolin, who unfortunately likes to battle alongside Grunts. Anyways, Zinzolin leads with Cryogonal, and the Grunt leads with Golbat. We Flare Blitz Zinzolin's Cryogonal for the one-shot while Samurott does nothing. Zinzolin then sends out Sneasel, who we then also one-shot. With Zinzolin's Pokemon both knocked out, all that's left is the Grunt's Pokemon, who Hugh apparently doesn't mind even when they're giving my Tepig a concussion. We return the Golbat and knock it out, and then the Grunt sends out a Garbodor, who after 2 turns also faints. Zinzolin waddles away and we continue forward to take on Drayden. Drayden leads with Druddigon, who we trade a return and crunch with. We then use another return, this time getting a higher roll and knocking it out. Drayden then sends out a very spooky Flygon, who we're able to thankfully crit with return for the one-shot. Drayden's last Pokemon is Haxorus, who we immediately return while it uses Dragon Dance. On the next turn though, we're still faster and take it out with one more return. Drayden gives us the badge and then takes us to his house to give us some much needed lore about the legendary dragons so that the upcoming plot points make sense. Anyways, shortly after Drayden gives us knowledge, Team Plasma ices the city with a giant flying pirate ship. Between this and End's castle in black and white, I don't know which is more silly. With the city covered in ice, we then decide to beat up Zinzolin again. Zinzolin doesn't fight alongside a Grunt this time, thankfully, and he leads with his Cryogonal again. We take it out with a single return, and just when we thought we were safe, he sends out another Cryogonal, the Horror. We take it out with another return. Weavile is Zinzalin's last Pokemon, who outspeeds us with Night Slash, but we answer with Flare Blitz and one-shot it. From here, we have a battle with one of the Shadow Triad. The Triad leads with a Pawniard, who is a very easy one-shot with Flare Blitz. Absol is up next, who we hit with Return while it hits us with a huge Night Slash. We then take it out on the next turn with another Return, and then another Pawniard is sent out, who we once again easily knock out. Unfortunately, our next fight is one that I really did not want to do. Marlin is the last gym leader that we have to fight, and we're stuck here for a very, very long time. Caracosta is the lead, who we return because it has Sturdy, and thankfully it uses Shell Smash, so we're able to knock it out on the next turn with a Head Smash. Wailord is up next, who we're able to knock out with a crit return, thankfully. And last up is Jellison, who we hit with another crit Head Smash, finally letting us move on with the game. We find Zinzalin on the flying pirate ship, and then he battles us alongside a Grunt. The lead Pokemon are Cryogonal and Liepard, and we decide that this time we should take out the Grunt first. We return the Liepard and knock it out, but Cryogonal confuses us. Watchog is sent out next, who we return for another one-shot. Cryogonal then confuses Samurott, but to be honest, Samurott isn't helping much anyways. Scolipede is the last Pokemon from the Grunt, who we're able to take out with the Flare Blitz. With the Grunt taken care of, we refocus on Zinzalin. Finally, Samurott does something useful and takes out the Cryogonal. Zinzalin then sends out another Cryogonal, who we hit with Return to knock it out. Zinzalin's last Pokemon is Weavile, who actually tanks our Return and Samurott's Aqua Tail. What a beast. We knock it out on the next turn though, regardless. Team Plasma then kicks us off the flying boat and flies over to the giant chasm, where we're headed towards next. But as soon as we get there, guess who shows up to stop us? Zinzalin. Zinzalin leads with his first Cryogonal, who we crit one-shot. He then sends out his second Cryogonal, who is another one-shot. Then Zinzalin sends out his Weavile, who we take out with Flare Blitz. And that's the last we'll see of good old Zinzalin. We move through the ship and find Colress again, who actually posed a huge problem for us for a long time. Colress still leads with Magneton, who we still can't one-shot due to Sturdy. We Flare Blitz twice anyways, and we get a burn on the second Flare Blitz, which will take it out before it Volt switches. Magnezone is then sent out, and we try to Flare Blitz, but we're paralyzed so we can't. We then rest to heal ourselves up and clear the status, but Magnezone keeps hitting us with Discharge, so we end up resting a second time. We go through another cycle and rest a third time, hoping Magnezone will stop hitting us with Discharge. We rest again a fourth time, just stalling out the Magnezone, and finally, it starts using Flash Cannon. We then wake up after a few Flash Cannons and hit it with a Flare Blitz for the one-shot. Next up is Matang, who is another Flare Blitz one-shot. Klinklang is up next, but due to the recoil, we need to rest again. Fortunately, we don't need to rest 4 times to get past this Pokemon, as it buffs itself a few times instead of hitting us. We wake up and one-shot it with Flare Blitz. Colress's last Pokemon is Behem, who is yet another one-shot with Flare Blitz. We then meet with Getsus, who gives us a very important speech on why you should subscribe to my YouTube channel. I do weekly Pokemon challenges with big plans for the future, and I'd be honored if you took Getsus' advice. After Getsus' words of approval, the Shadow Triad shows up and taunts Hugh, meaning that we've got to take care of business. I'll be real though, the Shadow Triad were really not a big threat. Each of them uses 2 Pawniard, which we can one-shot with Flare Blitz, and 1 other Pokemon, those being Liepard, Absol, and Bayonet. We very quickly take out all 3 of the Shadow Triad without issue. Getting into the main threat, we meet Getsus within the cave where he attempts to K-word us. Thankfully, N saves us, but that was Getsus' plan all along. He tricks N into bringing his legendary dragon to the fight, allowing Kyurem to absorb it. Nice. Get it? Because Kyurem is an ice type? Man, I make the best content. With Reshiram absorbed, White Kyurem is born and is the all-powerful Pokemon everyone is so scared about. Oh. Never mind. Tepig one-shots with Head Smash and they defuse. Who would have thought that this entire evil scheme of Getsus would be stopped by a really strong Piggy? Getsus doesn't take this too easily though and proceeds to bully me for several hours, forcing me to grind significantly before we can surpass him. Eventually, we're able to one-shot the Cofagrigus with Flare Blitz, which is a huge deal because we cannot one-shot the next Pokemon, Seismitoad, which will usually hit us with Earthquake for more than half of our health, even with the Eviolite. We're able to hit it twice with Return to take it out though. Drapion is next, who we one-shot with Flare Blitz, prompting Getsus to bring out Hydreigon. We take a huge risk and go for a crit return, which we don't get, but Hydreigon does miss the Rock Slide, letting us finally get past this accursed dragon. Electros is up next, so we decide to rest for more health. Unfortunately, fighting Electros is just like fighting Chorus's Magnezone, so we have to rest multiple times to stall out the Thunderbolts, waiting for the acrobatics to start happening. After what felt like forever, Electros finally runs out of Thunderbolts, and we're able to land some returns to take it down. Ghetsis' last Pokemon is Toxicroak, who could very easily take us out if we're not careful. We go for a Flare Blitz to ensure the KO, and it doesn't go for Sucker Punch, so we finally get past Ghetsis after an eternity of grinding. Team Plasma then disbands and we trek onto the Pokemon League, but before we get there, Hugh interrupts our journey. Hugh leads with Unpheasant, who we can't one-shot with Return, but very fortunately, Unpheasant uses Swagger on us to increase our attack power at the cost of being confused. Hugh then heals and we hit ourselves, but that would be the last time we hit ourselves. We then one-shot the Unpheasant thanks to the boosted attack, one-shot the Bouffalant, and then even one-shot the Samurott all with just Return thanks to the boost Unpheasant gave us with Swagger. Simisage is the last Pokemon, who we also easily one-shot with Flare Blitz, ending our last battle with Hugh. We then take on the Pokemon League, deciding to start with Chantal first since she is likely the hardest. We replaced Return with Wild Charge, specifically for this fight since Return is useless here. Chantal leads with Cofagrigus, who we crit for the one-shot. Golurk is up next, who I was very worried about, but we're able to one-shot it as well. Now comes Drifblim, who is a huge problem due to the recoil from Wild Charge and Aftermath, but we were able to solve that by using the Shell Bell for more health return than leftovers due to the high health opponents. Chandelure is then sent out and we YOLO with Head Smash, ending the fight with 29 HP after Shell Bell heals. I figured Marshall would be the next most difficult due to Sock having Sturdy, which has been a huge problem for Tepig this entire run. Marshall leads with Throw, who we trade Return and Bulldoze with. He then heals, but we land another 2 returns for free, taking it down. Conkeldurr is sent out next, and we hit it with Return while it uses Bulk Up. On the next turn, we Flare Blitz and take it out. Sock is up next, and we decide to Return to try to break the Sturdy ability, but it procs anyways. Fortunately, we dodge the Rock Slide and then get a crit return, so Sock wasn't much of a problem after all. Mienshao is Marshall's last Pokemon, who we melt with a Flare Blitz for the win. The only other Pokemon I thought might be a threat would be Grimsley's Crocodile, so that's where we went next. Grimsley leads with Liepard, who delays the inevitable with a Fake Out, but we knock it out on the next turn. Crocodile is then sent out and lowers my attack, so the moment of truth was whether I could one-shot it with Flare Blitz, and I surprisingly could. With Crocodile out, Scrafty is sent out, who promptly misses Rock Tomb after we Flare Blitz. We then use Return after it heals, followed up by another Flare Blitz for the knockout. Grimsley's last Pokemon is Bisharp, who isn't a threat at all, getting absolutely destroyed by my Blazing Piggy. The last Elite Four member is Caitlyn, who I anticipate to not be a threat at all. Caitlyn leads with her Musharna, who we're able to take out with a Flare Blitz. Next up is Reuniclus, who is yet another one-shot with Flare Blitz. Following Reuniclus, Caitlyn sends out Gothitelle, who actually surprised me by resisting a return in a previous run, but in this case, we one-shot with Flare Blitz. And Caitlyn's last Pokemon is Sigilith, who is the last victim of Flare Blitz. Moving on to this final fight, it is here that I have to admit defeat. Yes, it is true. I could not beat Iris without using trainer items in this battle, which really sucks given how far we came. Every single Pokemon Iris has harbors moves that can essentially one-shot my Tepig even with the Eviolite due to the majority of Tepig's moves being recoil moves. I tried this fight for hours, and I finally decided it was time to beat the game at the very least, similar to how we did with Caterpie. Iris leads with Hydreigon, which for some reason knows Surf. Her coverage is insane. Anyways, we use our only X attack on Tepig during this first turn. We then tank a Surf and use an X speed to ensure that we can outspeed Haxorus later. We tank another Surf and then use a Dire Hit. We're all set up now, but we need health, so we max potion while Hydreigon goes for a Dragon Pulse, a huge mistake. We then get a crit Flare Blitz, taking it out. Aggron is sent out next, who we one-shot with Flare Blitz thanks to the X attack. Haxorus is the wall we could not surpass. Haxorus knows Earthquake, and while we do outspeed it, Haxorus holds a Focus Sash, effectively giving it Sturdy, the biggest roadblock in this challenge. We decide to heal up with a Hyper Potion while Haxorus uses Earthquake for a little under half of our health. We then go for a risky Flare Blitz to proc the Focus Sash, and thankfully Haxorus uses Dragon Dance, which would have made it faster than us. We Hyper Potion again, predicting that Iris would full restore, so we're both full health again. With the Focus Sash gone, we can Flare Blitz again, this time getting the one-shot we needed. Lapras is sent out next, but we have an answer for that with Wild Charge, one-shotting it thankfully. Druddigon follows Lapras, who we one-shot with Flare Blitz, and last up is Archeops, who we're able to one-shot with Flare Blitz as well, finally letting us get past the biggest champion roadblock I've encountered yet. It is an absolute shame to me that we got all the way to the champion of the game without breaking any of the rules at the start of the video, but just like Caterpie, I felt it was better to prove that you can in fact beat the game with only a Tepig, but not without help from some other items. A big problem with Tepig was that most of the moves it could learn were all recoil moves, and Tepig also doesn't learn any self-buffing moves like Bulk Up or Work Up or anything else. Tepig is a brutal Pokemon that requires self-healing and or one-shots in order to work, which is why sturdy Pokemon or Focus Sash Pokemon like Haxorus were such a huge deal. The final time for this challenge was 28 hours and 38 minutes, which is pretty solid considering how hard it is to grind in this game with the new EXP algorithm introduced in this generation. This is roughly an hour shorter than the Squirtle through Pokemon Leaf Green challenge we did a month ago, and I'm surprised, to be honest. Anyways, I streamed this run over on Twitch, which I plan on doing weekly. Also, if you liked this video, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe as it would help me out a lot. If you'd like, feel free to leave a comment to let me know how you feel about the video, since I love seeing what you guys think about my content. If you're interested in coming and hanging out, feel free to follow the link below to either my Twitch, my Twitter, or my Discord. This has been Shro, and thank you for watching.